Hello and welcome to Morning Call for Thursday, the day of Thor, the 17th of January 2019. I must apologize, I'm a bit late today because I had to write a very urgent security story this morning, which is also our first, it's gonna be our first story. So let's get right into the tech news for today. So we had for days, Australian security researcher Troy Hunt was teasing that he had a massive data leak. If you don't know Troy Hunt, he runs haveibeenpawned.com, where you can check if your password has been compromised in a password leak, and by virtue of his job, he always tries to get his hands on new data leaks, and he found a massive one. So in this leak, there are all in all, and now hold on to your hats, all in all, there are over 1 billion email and password combinations, which, although some of them are double, so it comes down to about 773 million accounts that have been collected, I guess, by somebody. They were available in like underground forums, and I think you could just download them for a while. Hunt has a screenshot from Mega peer-to-peer service here. It's been taken down now, but like the data is still available. And this is, so it's 2.7 billion combinations all in all. So Hunt says these are mostly used for credential stuffing, which is when you attack a web service and you're not trying to brute force one account, but what you're trying to do is you have lots of email and password combinations, and you just try to attack just try to get into any account. So you have a list of emails and passwords, and you just try to brute force that. So you're not trying to brute force a password to an email address that you know passwords, email addresses, and you just try to get in. And usually that kind of works because what lots of people do is just reuse passwords, and that's why often with those things you can get into a service. Yeah, so this Troy Hunt has been working on this for quite a while on this leak, and he's actually been tweeting about it, so I've been following it, and tonight, he's in Australia, so over the night he announced this, and he announced that it's now in Have I Been Pawned. Like he put the data in, so you can check if your email address is in there. He put the passwords in, so if you want to use pawned passwords, which is kind of controversial because even though he's trying to protect your data, you are entering a password on another website, and you should really never do this. But this he was tweeting about this over the week, and this leak was so big that it was kind of breaking his his database infrastructure, and he's had like problems just like putting it into his service, and it's gonna cost a lot of money because of cloud services, and it's just very interesting. Yeah, so I had to get up this morning, and that's the first story I wrote today. So that's why we're a little bit late this morning. I hope that's okay. Thanks, by the way, to my 3 subscribers. I love you, and also to Igwik and Maloki for hosting me. that is really great. So of course there have been other news, more about the German hacker we were talking about, the guy who leaked the politicians' data. Now the federal police, BKA, is saying he might not have been alone, because apparently they were questioning him and he couldn't satisfactorily explain how he got the data, like how he hacked into accounts and stuff. And now they're just investigating further. I'm not quite sure if this means that he wasn't acting alone. Maybe. Okay, sometimes my trust in these people investigating these things is not very high, and maybe they just didn't understand him. maybe they didn't understand what he was saying, and that's why they think he can't explain his. I don't know. It still looks to me like it was this one guy. I mean, he might have, it's like these people are, there's communities of like these doxers and leakers and hackers, and they talk to each other, right? And that's where these underground forums come in. They're just forums that nobody else is there, like that you wouldn't know because they're not indexed anywhere. And I mean, they talk about this stuff. So I guess he had help because of that. Anyway, I'm not quite sure, but that's what they're saying, and they're investigating further. So I'll keep an eye on the story if we have further developments. In other German news, in Germany for a long time, you can get this, if you buy an electric car, you get a subsidy, you get money from the government because it's good for the environment, and for a long time, you could get money, I think up to 4,000 euros. When you bought a Tesla. Now this is now not happening anymore because the Bundesamt für Wirtschaft und Ausfuhrkontrolle, the BAFA. So what Tesla did is they changed what cars they're selling, and they used to have like a cheap version of their car, which this is the base model of the Model S, and they're not selling that anymore. And this was like the only car from Tesla that approached anything to being like a normal person's car, like not a ridiculously expensive luxury car. And now the cheapest model they're selling now of the Model S, I mean, there's the Model X, which is like the SUV, which is even more expensive. And then there's the Roadster, which is also expensive. But of the Model S, the cheapest version is now 104,900 euros. 104,900 euros. You can get almost 3 Ford Mustangs for this price. You can get 2 Ford Mustangs GT for that price. I don't know. I don't know what a Corvette costs. Oh, I should look this up, right? Chevrolet. Okay, let's go to another camera in case I leak my Corvette porn. I just want to see what a Corvette. The Corvette is my benchmark for just an expensive car because I love it so much. So in Germany, according to Google, you can get a new Corvette from 91,000 euros. So that means that the cheapest Tesla you can buy is now more expensive than a Corvette. And to me, that's a luxury car. This is also why the BAFA said, well, you're not eligible. You're not getting any subsidy when you're buying such a car, because this is a luxury car and you shouldn't get money from the state when you buy that. I think that's reasonable. In open source, you know me, I like open source, I like Linux distributions, and there's always fun news there because open source developers are constantly fighting. And last year, you might have noticed that MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database that is really very, very much used, especially in cloud environments, they switched their license. They used to be licensed under the AGPL v3, which is the version of the GPL that is used for web services. Because with the normal GPL, you only need to give the person that is so if you're distributing software. So if you if I have a website and I have like I make a desktop program, and if I put that on my website and it's GPL v3, if you can download it there, I need to give you the source code because I'm distributing the software. Now the problem is if you extend that to cloud software, server software, like if I run a website service and you use that, and the software is under GPL, I don't have to give you the source code because I'm not distributing you the software. You are using the software on my server. Now, the AGPL was written so that people who provide such a web service of AGPL software then have to also give people the source code. And I don't know. I always thought this kind of worked. I kind of like the AGPL. I know people who were involved in the drafting process, and I always thought it was a good license. Now, Redis started this. There's another database. They said, so this is not working for us. We suspect that people are, like cloud providers are using our software in proprietary other software installations, whatever, and they're not distributing the source code. 7 of 9 says the AGPL is great. It has a shitty name though. Yeah, it's called the Affero GPL. I think the people, like, I know people who wanted it to have a different name, but you know. Oh my God! Don't get into the FSF installment and trying to change names. That, you know how hard that is. Anyway, so Redis started this. They're saying they're using our software and they're not complying with the AGPL, and they found ways around it. We need another license. And MongoDB did this as well. And then now they have a license called the server-side public license, the SSPL. Now, the problem with this license is that people are saying, like, what the fuck is Affero, says 709? That was a company. That was the company that the AGPL was developed for. Like, it came out of their initiative. That's why it's called Affero GPL. But I agree with you. It's not a good name. By the way, you can now, if you're a subscriber, I got my emoticon approved by Twitch, so you can now spam Fab as hardcore Fenton Mud in the chat. Anyway, let's get back to this license crap because it's complicated. Anyway, so the SSPL. So the proponents say this prevents these companies from using our software without having to distribute the code and the changes they do and their changes, and that's good. The critics of the SSPL say, no, that's actually not the reason why you changed the license. The reason that you changed the license is you want to make money off your AGPL code, and what you're doing is actually you're giving people who want to use your code and do not want and build stuff on top of that and do not want to open source that stuff. You're giving them the ability to buy. I mean, you can do this with open source code, to buy a proprietary license to that same code base, and then they can do whatever they want. And what they're saying is the SSPL, the critics say the SSPL is made to spread fear, uncertainty, and doubt with users, so that users of the code, so that they will feel pressured to buy a proprietary license, whereas the company, in this case MongoDB, then makes money of that. And the development we're actually talking about, so the news today is that software, the Linux distributions, Fedora, Debian, and RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, have kicked MongoDB out of their repos because they have evaluated the SSPL and saying it's not a free software license. Now, the jury on this, as far as the open source initiative, the OSI, who is usually the body everybody looks at if something's an open source license, is still out. They are evaluating the license, but they're saying the SSPL, that the original version is version 1.1, approval withheld pending a redrafted version, because they're currently working on version 2. MongoDB is on working on SSPL version 2. Now, on the OSI, in the OSI group, there are several people who say it shouldn't be an open source license because of the reasons we talked about. But there are other people who are saying it should be. Now, the problem here is, as far as I can tell, the SSPL is written in a way that the OSI will not have much choice Oh yeah, Mike. As you can see, we also have sub badges now. So thanks for the sub, Mike. Appreciate it. It is written in such a way that the OSI will have to approve it. That it technically is an open source license, but it puts an onus on users that get this whole thing in motion, where you will have to feel pressure to buy a proprietary license now. So on the OSI side, the jury's still out. Now, Fedora, so RHEL, Red Hat, Fedora, the Fedora community has decided that it's not a free software license. This is Tom Calloway, who is kind of in charge with Fedora of evaluating licenses. Well, he's not alone, but he's like he's the legal guy from Fedora, and he said they think they shouldn't consider so he says to consider the SSPL to be free or open source causes that shadow to be cast across other licenses in the FOSS ecosystem. And the problem is the shadow is that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So what they're basically saying is this license just puts it puts so strong restrictions on somebody wanting to comply with it, that in itself is not free, because the part of free software is like the freedoms the user gets, the 4 freedoms, and he has to have certain, or she has to have certain freedoms to use the software, and something like this would impinge it, they're saying. So basically, it's the question is, are the requirements of the SSPL so bad that, like, if you build, let's say you get a piece of software that is under the SSPL, you get MongoDB, you put it in so you have a Linux kernel that's open source, put MongoDB or GPL, put MongoDB on top of that, and then you put something else, you build something else on top of that. Now, you wouldn't have to give the user using this, you wouldn't have to give the Linux code. You could, but you wouldn't have to, because it's GPL and you're not distributing the software. Now, the AGPL, if there was AGPL software like MongoDB, you'd probably have to do that. And with SSPL, you also have to do that. Now, the question is, all the other software around, the software on top, the software under that, is that affected by the SSPL? Do you have to also give people the code? With Linux, it wouldn't be a problem. But if you have other code in there, if you have proprietary code somewhere in there, like even if I have this whole cloud stack, there's somebody like Amazon has this whole cloud stack, and there's proprietary software in there, but the user might not really directly interact with that. And the question is, like, as a, if you think about it, like with the normal person's mind, you'd think, okay, right, you'd have to give them the code for all of this, but that software that really doesn't affect this. And yeah, that's the question. Will you have to open source your whole cloud stack? And like somebody like Amazon probably can't. There's so much stuff in there, you don't even know what license. It's just a whole mess. And actually, Amazon has seemed to recognize this, because they're saying they will launch their own project called DocumentDB, which will be compatible. It'll be a NoSQL database, and it'll be compatible with drivers and tools that are MongoDB compatible. So this kind of looks like it's going bad for MongoDB. It kind of looks like they're being kicked out of Linux distributions, which means, of course, that if you run your web service on one of these distributions, you can't install the software from the repos. You can probably still install it, but that is a big problem, because security updates and stuff like that. Anyway, let's move on. That's a big story. I'll keep an eye on that. That'll just be interesting to us for a long time to come. Mozilla has announced that the Firefox pilot program is ending. This was something you could sign up to, and then you could test advanced features that might make it into Firefox, and you could give them feedback on that. It was very, very well received by a lot of users, because you could kind of get a glimpse at what's coming down the line with Firefox. You wouldn't have to it wasn't sure that it would end up in the browser. But like, you could test new stuff, and now they're saying they're canning that, and they have now a team that that is tasked with just innovating stuff in Firefox, and they're going to change. They say they won't stop innovating, but yeah, we'll see. Interesting. I thought that was just worth a mention in case you're interested in that program. You're in it. You know, people watching this are probably or listening to this are probably quite cutting edge, and they might have been interested in that program, might be in it, and just, you know, it's coming to an end. In other news, science news, hard science news. So the guys at CERN who are running the Large Hadron Collider are saying it's too small, and they want to build something called the Future Circular Collider, FCC, which is going to be a lot bigger. It's like, if you look at that map, they like you listen to this as a podcast. I'm trying to describe it. So they have a map which has Switzerland on it. Like it's like France, and then there's the bit of Switzerland that goes into France, and the Large Hadron Collider is half in Switzerland and half in France, and this FCC thing is gonna be as big as that part of Switzerland. I'm just gonna call up a map and see how big that is if you actually look at a map of Switzerland. Let's just zoom out here on the world. Where's Switzerland? Switzerland's so small it's hard to find. No, it's actually not that small, but it's like this is down in the area where Geneva is, which is like this little. For the people watching, I'm going to show you a map. It's like this little. So Switzerland is like this big, and there's like this little bit of Switzerland that is half in Lac Léman. It's down Geneva is down here, and you can see here how big that thing's gonna be. It's gonna be huge. And basically what they're saying is, well, they discovered the Higgs boson, and that has reached, they've gotten a lot of more questions from that, more questions than answers, as it's always with science. And they now saying that closes the chapter of the standard model and poses new, more puzzling questions that call for building energy and intensity frontier colliders. The FCC study lays the foundations for a new research infrastructure that succeeds the HLLHC and serve the worldwide physics community for the rest of the 21st century. That can succeed. Anyway, for the rest of the 21st century. So they're saying they're building this for the next 80 years, I guess. And this is only a study, so they just wanna build that. ASCII in the chat saying that they're not calling it the Very Large Collider. That's disappointing. Yeah, I was kind of hoping for Collide phase or something like that. And that's pretty much all the news. Got some gaming news at the end here, and just something fun. So let's get into that and wrap up the show. It's been going very long anyway. So if you're into Magic the Gathering like me, you'd be interested to know that Magic the Gathering Arena is the game you can play online. Well, there too. There's Magic Online, and then there's Arena, but Arena is the cool one that all the cool kids are playing. And they're releasing a new Magic set this weekend. It's pre-release for Ravnica Allegiance, and they're saying Ravnica Allegiance is actually coming today to Magic the Gathering Arena. So people who play this will have the new set, 254 new cards. Really interesting. So this is the other guilds from Ravnica. So the Ravnica Guilds of Ravnica, the current set, introduced the first 5, and now we have the other 5, which is Azorius, Rakdos, Gruul, Simic, and Orzhov. And if you're not into Magic, that doesn't mean anything to you, so I'm just gonna quit it there. Big fucking Collider is another suggestion from the chat. I would like that as well. The BFC. Kind of like the BFG, kind of cool. Yeah, and then something to make you feel old. It certainly made me feel old. This is just to close up the show. So yesterday, in 1995, a little Star Trek series called Voyager went on the air. It's been wow. It's wow. I can remember that. So Voyager for me is a special Star Trek series. Because while I had watched, in the beginning of the 90s, I watched mostly TNG in reruns. I mean, this was when you still had to watch TV to watch anything, and you had to wait for things to come on. Like young people today won't even know what that means. Um, but yeah, so I was watching reruns of TNG. Never really watched the original series back then. I was watched TNG, and then of course DS9 also, but that was also reruns. I never watched that when it was on. And Voyager to me was the first Star Trek series that I watched when when they released it. So when it came to Germany, I sat down. Back in the day, I used to have a Starfleet uniform. I sat down, I think Friday nights it was on. Sat down on the sofa, sometimes with my mom, and I would watch Voyager, and that was great. I mean, in school, I was such a nerd. For a school assignment, there was like this thing where we had to pick like some topic and we had to talk about it. This was like, I don't know what that was, like sixth grade or something. And I had the technical manual of the Voyager. I picked the Voyager. I drew a big poster of a cross section of the Voyager and told everybody where everything was. The warp engine and how that worked. And yeah, I was such a nerd. Still am. Still proud of it. I love it. I love Voyager. I mean, the series has its problems, but a captain who likes coffee, I'm down with that. And it has a special place in my heart just because of that. And I actually I'm in the process of getting one of those uniforms made because I always wanted an ops uniform like the Voyager Deep Space Nine style. The old one I had as a kid obviously is long gone. That would be way too small now. Yes, I was very much a geek. I was the definition of a geek. I still am. Anyway, I thought that's like something just to round it out, make you feel old. It's just, oh my god, Voyager being on TV that long ago. That's just amazing to me. I mean, my god, that's 24 years ago. It's just crazy shit. Anyway, I hope you have a good penultimate day of the week. And just check if you're in that email breach and you might want to change your password. Use a password manager, always handy. And yeah, just don't get hacked. And have a nice day. And I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully a bit earlier again. Goodbye. Live long and prosper.